Hello, and thank you for joining me again today on the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. Today's conversation is about pregnancy loss, grief, and what happens after miscarriage, especially the part that no one ever prepares you for. Because for so many lost parents, the hardest moment isn't just about the loss itself, it's also realizing that once that appointment ends, the support often does too. Today, I'm joined by Natassa, a lost mom and the founder of We Are 1 in 4, a nonprofit working to change how miscarriage and pregnancy loss are treated, both in our healthcare system and in the language that we use to talk about loss. After experiencing 2 miscarriages herself, Natassa found something in her medical records that stopped her in her tracks: the term spontaneous abortion. What began as confusion turned into advocacy and eventually into a mission to ensure that no one leaves a miscarriage appointment without answers, support, or dignity. And at the end of this episode, I'm sharing a special bonus segment I really hope you stay for. It's called the 3-question test every provider should be able to pass after miscarriage. It's simple, just 3 questions, but it shows where care breaks down and how we can begin to change what's considered normal after miscarriage. As you listen today, I invite you to notice where the care felt supportive and where it didn't, because naming the gaps clearly is how change begins. And after that conversation, I'll walk you through the 3 questions that you can ask, whether you're a patient, partner, or provider, that can immediately start to shift how miscarriage care is handled. Hello, everyone. Today I am here with Natassa. Natassa, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me on. My husband and I live in Colorado and we have 4 children together. My background is in healthcare, and I recently stepped away a few years ago to pursue entrepreneurship. So we own our own company, and then we also have 2 nonprofit organizations. One I started in 2018, and then this most recent one I started in 2024 that focuses on miscarriage and just the advocacy surrounding it.
Wow, you are a busy person.
Yes, I like being busy. Busy is good for me.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely. I'm always like, if I have this 5 minutes here, I have to find something to fill that time. And then I'm like, oh no, I'm doing too much.
I know. I don't sit still well, so I like being busy.
And it looks like, because I can see out the window there, is it snowing there?
It is. It's our first major snowfall of the year, so it's cold.
I have to admit, my kids would be really jealous because we're in Texas and it doesn't snow here.
It snows like an inch there, everything shuts down.
It is, yeah. I mean, people are like, oh my gosh, it's like, what is this white stuff falling from the sky?
Yes,
It's pretty bad. So, do you mind sharing a little about your journey?
absolutely. So my husband and I have experienced 2 miscarriages. One was right at about the 13-week mark, and the other one was about 7 to 8 weeks. Both were completely different from the experience of how the losses occurred. The 13-week one was a miscarriage. So everything was, just how most of those go. Everything's fine. You feel pregnant. It's almost like a cruel joke where you're still nauseous, breast tenderness, everything. And then we were completely blindsided at an ultrasound, and they were doing the ultrasound, and it was an abdominal at that point. And I just remember the doctor saying that she was having difficulty finding the heartbeat. And at first it almost didn't register with me, where we were so blindsided that I remember even saying like, well, is that worrisome? Because it wasn't hitting me. So that was our first loss. And that did require DNC because my body just was not doing what it was supposed to at that point. And then our second loss was right at about the 7 to 8 week mark. And instantly I knew something wasn't right. I know my body, and you know how you just get that gut feeling that something is not right here. And that was our second loss, and that baby we just passed naturally at home.
It's so hard when, I mean, miscarriages, like you said, it's like a cruel joke. It's one of those things that nothing seems wrong because you're always taught like miscarriages, you're going to bleed, you're going to cramp. And so
Yeah.
you just go in completely blindsided because you think everything's fine because you haven't been bleeding or you haven't been cramping.
Exactly. And we were literally sitting in the ultrasound room before the doctor came in to scan us, talking about upgrading our SUV to a bigger SUV. Like all these things we can do, just excited to expand our family. And Then we left having to schedule D&C. They're talking about if we want our baby cremated, just all this stuff that it was such a shift in a 60-minute period that it was whiplash. It really was whiplash.
And so you have living kids at home?
We each have a prior child from a different relationship, so we were blending our family together finally, and it just seemed it's hard. It's hard also telling them because our kids are now they're 10. This was back in 2021. But how do you tell young kids that, okay, I'm no longer pregnant? And we wanted to be open and transparent with them. That was really important to us.
Yeah, that's really hard. I mean, because you try to explain it in like the most age appropriate way you can, but they don't always fully understand it. And then you're like, well, and it's up to each person what they're comfortable with because some want to be clear and direct and say the baby died. Some don't want to use that word. And I just think there's no right or wrong way to do it.
There really isn't. And, we did receive some backlash even from some people close to us about why would you tell your children? And we just felt it was important, just like we felt like we were experiencing whiplash. We didn't want them to all of a sudden think, okay, mommy's having another baby and now she's not.
Yeah, and I feel like it's kind of unfair to keep them out of it. My son was only 3 when we lost Jasmine, so in my head, I wasn't really sure how much he was understanding it, but as he's gotten older, he's 11 now. So as he's gotten older, I realize a lot of that really did stick with him, and you just don't realize it. But they are affected by it, even if you don't think they are, even if they seem okay, it comes out later sometimes.
Absolutely. And kids understand a lot more than we give them credit for, I think. And
They
even
do.
they pick up on the energy surrounding the room where if everybody's sad and they pick up on that and they know something's wrong.
Yeah, and we can't just go around pretending we're not sad about our loss.
Absolutely.
It doesn't work like that. I tried.
No.
Yeah, but the reason I was asking was I was just curious if your living children came first or if the losses came first. But it sounds like in your case, you had a healthy pregnancy before going through loss.
We did. And then I also, after each loss, we were able to conceive a healthy baby. So we had a loss in 2021. Now we have a 3.5-year-old daughter, and then a loss and got pregnant and have an 18-month-old son.
Wow, it's when you think back about it, it's like, how did I go through all of that? Like, how did I survive that?
It's hard, and pregnancy after loss, it's petrifying where you want to be grateful, you want to be happy, but at the same time, there's every little thing you wonder if something's going wrong. And it's really hard to pull out of that headspace at times.
Oh, it is. I say like after my loss, pregnancy after loss was like the second hardest thing.
It really is. And it doesn't get enough recognition or people, I don't feel like it has enough support surrounding that.
No, I agree because people just think, oh, well, it's just like any other pregnancy. Like you should be happy you're pregnant again. And it's like, no, you don't understand like the layers that come with it.
Absolutely. Or that everything happens for a reason. And it's that one's hard. That one's hard to hear. Or people hear that we have 4 children and they're like, well, just be grateful. And I am, but that
Yeah,
doesn't
but
mean that I can't also grieve the 2 children that we have lost.
people don't understand. Like we want all of our kids. We
Yes,
don't just want the living kids. We want the other kids too.
exactly.
And I don't mean to laugh about it, but it's just like the things people say sometimes. I'm like, you're really stupid. I'm sorry.
I agree with you. And it's hard. It's hard to sometimes be kind in those moments also, especially if it's somebody close to you saying those things where you just really want to just want to scream.
I know, and I try to remind myself like I don't think people are trying to be hurtful, but it still hurts and you can't. I mean, I hear all the time like you can't control what other people say, you can only control how you react to it. And I'm like, okay, but I'd rather just control what they're
I know.
saying.
That is a good way to look at it though.
Yeah, my mom's a counselor, so I grew up around all that kind of I don't know if stuff's the right word,
Yeah,
but you know what I mean.
absolutely.
Did you ever have to deal with people commenting because your losses were earlier about them being early losses or not being seen as a real loss or anything like that?
Yes and no. I feel like once I explained, like, this is whether you find out if you're pregnant right away or not, I think your body still knows. And the second you find out you're pregnant, your whole mentality shifts, right? So we had to tell people, like, yes, we wanted these babies, of course, and it doesn't matter if 7 or 8 weeks or 13 weeks, or I have a friend that lost a baby very late in pregnancy, and it's very hurtful. It's very hard.
Did you really know anybody else who had gone through either infertility or loss before you went through yours?
One of my really good friends, her and her husband experienced 3 miscarriages. And I think unfortunately, it's ultimately what led them to get a divorce. They just couldn't, it was really hard on them.
Yeah.
And they were all around that 12-week mark. So it's like right when you're getting ready to, I feel like most people start opening up about their pregnancy right at about the 12, 13 mark. And she was always ready. And then unfortunately, she would lose the baby.
It's so tough. I mean, loss is something that can either bring you together or really break you apart. And sometimes that's just a challenge that you can't overcome, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's hard.
I mean, people, again, people who haven't been through it, they just don't realize that it doesn't just affect the mom, it affects the father, it affects the children, it affects extended family. I mean, it affects everybody in your life, really.
Absolutely. And I was so fortunate where my husband, I feel like at times he even put aside his own grief just to like truly be my rock. And it's hard, because you want to also support them, but you're so overwhelmed. And
Yeah.
like, I just remember that morning after waking up after our first loss. And I even asked my husband, I was like, did that really happen? Almost like hoping it was just a horrible dream. And he's like, yeah. And we just, I mean, it's hard, and it's hard to be present after that, you know?
This is something I struggled with, so I'm curious if you had the experience, but having living kids at home and going through loss, was it hard to be present for your living children?
It was. It was really hard because I didn't want to almost take it out on them in a way where they feel, and they were much younger, like I said back then, so they don't understand the severity of, okay, why doesn't mom and dad want to play right now? Why are they so sad? Why, I feel like at that point, all I really wanted to do was just lay in bed. I didn't want to eat. I was so sad, of course.
Yeah, that's something I really struggled with too. And then it makes you feel like you're a horrible parent because you're not, being there, but then it's like you also need that space for yourself. And it's really hard to do both of those things simultaneously.
100%. It got to the point where I did eventually seek out grief therapy. And for a while there, I was going twice a week just to try to piece together life and learn how to cope with stuff
Did you
again.
find that helpful?
I do. I started in June of 2021, and I still go once a week. It's expanded to other stuff beyond that, of course, but I think grief therapy was extremely helpful in understanding. One of the biggest takeaways is you can be grateful and still be grieving at the same time. And that's really
Yes.
helped me a lot.
Which I think is really important this time of year as we're approaching the holidays and everybody expects you to like be happy. It's the holidays and you have to be around family and friends and sometimes that's hard for people. So I think that's a really important thing to remember, especially during the holidays.
Yes, it's a tough time of year for a lot of people.
So then what led you to create your nonprofit that's related to pregnancy loss?
So there were two things that really stuck out in my mind. One of them was I was going through my patient chart one day, just kind of reviewing something simple like address changes or phone number changes, and I saw spontaneous abortion on it. And I feel like it almost felt like a punch in the gut where I'm like, this is not words that should be used for that, And it really has nothing to do with abortion or anything like that, but the two things are very separate. And then the second thing was for our second loss, because we passed the baby at home and I knew what was happening before it was happening. The doctor essentially, once my HCG levels were confirmed that they were lowering, she was just like, okay, well, call us if you bleed through a pad in an hour. I'm sorry for your loss. And that was almost it. Like maybe a 30-second phone call. And we were at one of my son's best friend's birthday parties at the time when we got that phone call. So it felt so overwhelming. So just between lack of resources and seeing the word spontaneous abortion on my patient chart, it lit a fire in me for starting the process to get something in the works to change that.
So what is like the main goal of your nonprofit?
The main goals are I want to partner starting in here in Colorado is to partner with different OBGYNs and hospitals, primarily ERs, where if a patient is there for a miscarriage, they need to leave with some sort of resources. So we want to provide them with packets, whether that's resources for in-person support, online support, books they could read, podcasts, just anything of the sort. So you're not leaving with more questions than you walked in with. And then the second one is we want to get that terminology changed with the ICD coding. And I'm actually getting ready to submit that here in 2 days.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm really hopeful that some change will come of it.
I'm just curious what that involves, like trying to get that terminology changed. Like what's that process?
You submit it essentially through the CDC, and you have to submit a proposal and clinical reasoning. And so what I did is the last year, I have surveyed 152 patients that have gone through miscarriage anonymously through Google Forms, and then also 20 providers. So from MDs to RNs, and gotten their feedback on stuff. And a lot of the MDs and the medical providers are stating that they don't see why it's such outdated language.
Mm.
And it would not change any coding. It would not change anything really aside from just changing the name of it.
But it would change a lot on the patient side, right? Which is why
Exactly.
you're aiming to change it because yeah, those words are pretty jarring to see that on your chart. It's like you get this like really strong reaction to it.
And that's exactly what it was. And I remember even asking my OBGYN before I went into that appointment, like, why does it say this? And she essentially said that that's the way it's always been labeled. And it was probably a man that labeled that way. And that was it. It's like, but why? Why hasn't anybody changed it?
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because it was probably a man that labeled
Yeah,
it.
that's exactly what she told me, where she does, a man isn't going to experience that directly. So for them, those words may not matter as much as a woman seeing that on her chart. And it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, I feel like with the word spontaneous abortion that it makes it feel like it was a choice you made and it's
Mhm.
not a choice you made. I
Exactly.
know people also have problems with the word miscarriage too for other reasons. So it's kind of hard to know like what do you call it?
And that's the thing where everybody's not always going to be happy with whatever choice it is, whether it's works for ICD or the resources that are handed out, but just doing better and showing that we're trying to take steps forward as opposed to staying exactly where we're at. I feel like that's one of the biggest goals and takeaways.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I think it's amazing that you're doing that because I think even the word miscarriage, though people may have issues with it, I think it's better than the spontaneous abortion.
Exactly. Yes. And I've talked to some medical providers that have said, well, that is medically happening. And I feel like they're trying to play devil's advocate with me. And I understand that that's like the quite literal medical process, but there's nothing that would stop if it was unintended pregnancy loss or unintended miscarriage.
Yeah.
Changing that one word.
Yeah, and it doesn't, like you said already, it doesn't affect them. It doesn't change their job. It doesn't make any more paperwork for them. It doesn't do anything except make the patients feel better. So why would
Exactly.
you not do it? You
I
know?
agree. Yeah.
So when you were going through your losses, do you feel like you got any resources?
No, not. And like I said, the losses were so different. Where with the second loss, I feel like that was the one that really made me question, what are we doing with healthcare here? How are we supporting people? I mean, if 1 in 4 women are experiencing a pregnancy loss, imagine all the people walking around day to day that are just left wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
Like with the resources, wasn't told, well, how much pain is normal? What's normal? Yes, bleeding through a pad, but that's perspective for everybody and anybody. Everybody can interpret that different. How long is it supposed to last? And you shouldn't have to go to Google or Facebook groups. I joined a few miscarriage Facebook groups to get the answers to those questions. And that's when I realized so many people have that same exact question.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like we get more information from each other who have gone through it than from the people who we are supposed to trust to give us that information.
Absolutely. And that's not okay. And I understand that as a medical provider, a lot of people think that it's common. As an OBGYN, they probably see it way more times than, anybody would like to think about. But there still needs to be a little bit more empathy surrounding the situation and understanding.
And I think I forgot to ask you, but the name of the nonprofit is One in Four. Is
We
that?
are 1 in 4.
We are
Yep.
One in Four. Yeah. So if
Yes.
people were wanting to learn more about that, do you have like a website they could go to or an Instagram page or?
Instagram, Facebook, currently working on the website, and then you could just do Linktree / we are 1 in 4. And right now, basically, I just have, if you want to join the email list to have information in the future and the provider and patient surveys up. 2026, I really plan on ramping it up a lot, but I just wanted to take my time. And even for starting it, we got 501(c)(3) approved last year, September 2024. And I didn't really move forward with anything publicly until 2.5 months ago, just because I wanted to really try to do this the right way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like I'm the same way. Like I'm such a planner that I just want to make sure it's all
Plan
I
A, plan B.
I feel like, but it's weird because I also feel like I jump into stuff and then I'm like, wait, I don't have
Yes.
a plan for this. So yeah, no, I completely understand that.
Yeah,
Do you have plans in the future? I know you just started a couple months ago, but are you wanting to expand it outside of Colorado or do you have
absolutely.
plans for that?
Absolutely. I'm focusing on Colorado just because it's just me right now. So we are focusing on Colorado to work on, getting the ICD would be national, of course, because it would be within the ICD coding, but the resource packets would be here in Colorado. And then hopefully it would be almost like beta testing. So I can get provider feedback, what's working, what's not, what are ways to improve. And then I would like to eventually start expanding slowly but surely to different hospitals.
I love it. I mean, I love that you're doing that. We at our hospital, we had like a small resource list. It was mostly just names of like counselors and I think there's a couple of support groups on there. And I remember calling every single one of the counselors and none of them would call me back. And I'm like, I mean, like, why are you even giving me this list, you know?
Absolutely. And especially when you're in your most vulnerable moments, I feel like for some people at least, talking is that therapy. So you need to talk to somebody.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's easier to talk to somebody who doesn't know you and who doesn't know like your specific circumstances so they can be impartial and you can say those things without feeling judged.
100%.
Did you actually go? I know you did counseling. Did you ever do support groups or anything like that?
No, I did the Facebook group. So that was like kind of like an online community of, I mean, I want to say there's like 100,000 women in this group,
Wow.
which is, I mean, that is powerful in itself. But I
Yeah.
never went to an in-person support group. I almost wish I did. I feel like it could have helped especially during that first loss, where I just didn't know what way it was up, what way was down,
Mm.
what I did wrong. I kept blaming myself for everything. So it would have been nice to talk to someone else
It's
about that.
hard to know when you've never been through something like that. It's really hard to know what even to do. I mean, you just kind of go home like, what just happened? What do I do now?
Exactly. And we had to wait 6 days for our DNC. So it's like every day you just wake up and it's, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's so hard
Yeah.
just waking up every day knowing that you're carrying your baby that is no longer
Yeah.
alive. It's hard.
And I mean, if you don't want to share, you don't have to, but did you name either of your babies?
We didn't. We have an urn for the baby that we lost at almost 13 weeks. We just have baby boy on there. And then the second one, I have regret about this honestly all the time, but we didn't, after I passed the baby at home, we didn't keep the remains to get cremated. So, and that's something that haunts me honestly all the time.
It's just one of those things like you just don't know. Again, you just don't know. Like if that had happened to me with my two early losses, there was nothing. So I didn't face that, but I would not know what to do. Like I wouldn't, 'cause nobody tells you.
No. And it's especially at home, like I just,
Yeah,
you
you're
have
just
to walk
left.
out the door, yeah, and just tend to your other kids. And I still wanted to show up for my husband because I knew he was hurting also. And it's a really hard balancing act.
It is. And I mean, again, that's why I think it's so important that you're providing that education for people and those resources and, trying to change the way things have been done because just because they've been done that way for this number of years doesn't mean that it shouldn't have evolved by now.
Absolutely. And I've always been one where if I feel like something's not right, I'm gonna try something. Even if I fail, I'm at least then I know that I tried. And that's
Yeah,
really
and I've never heard of anybody else who's done this particular thing and trying to get the language changed. So honestly, it's probably something people haven't really thought of, They're just like, oh, this term sucks, but I can't do anything about it. So
right.
I love seeing how all the different people who have gone through this, show up for other lost moms and, use their talents and their knowledge to do so many like amazing things.
It's important. It's important. We all have to support each other and show up for one another. I feel like that's the best community as far as that is just community, as shitty as it is.
Yeah, I know nobody wants to be part of it,
No,
but
no.
I don't
There
think
was one
anybody.
Instagram that I saw that their name is the worst girl gang ever. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
so fitting. It really
I
is.
know. It is. It's like, sucks to be here. But
Yeah,
again, yeah, so many amazing people. And it's like, well, if I have to be here by no choice of my own, at
yeah,
least nobody else chose to be here either, and we can all do it together,
yes.
you know.
Power
And
in
I,
numbers.
and I feel like sometimes we just have to use that humor to get through.
Just get through the day at times.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people don't get it, like you can make I've seen people who make, jokes about loss and things like that, and I think some people don't like it, but sometimes I think they are funny and then I feel bad for laughing, but I'm like, okay, but the intent is to make light of a horrible situation that we all know is horrible?
Absolutely. And sometimes there's only so much you can do before you just, I don't know, you have to lower your walls a little bit too, if you're able to.
I feel like, our babies wouldn't want us to be sad every day for the rest of our lives. That's how I try to look at it. So they wouldn't want us to be miserable and not be happy and do other things?
Such a good way to look at it. And it's true. It really is true.
So I know that you said that you weren't provided many resources. Were there other things that you found on your own that helped you get through your grief besides the counseling?
I think just the counseling and the Facebook group,
Mhm.
honestly, and me turning, like I started doing the surveys last December, so a year ago, and it's just like I said, a Google form. And I think seeing people's responses there, and there's a few freehand questions and just people sharing some of the most intimate details in a way that helped me understand, number one, I'm not alone. And, my counselors always told me we don't compare grief, right? Grief is grief, but it's just seeing what other people have also been through. It, I don't even know how to describe it.
It really makes you know like that you're not alone because loss is very isolating and very lonely. Even if you have support, it's very lonely. And so I think just being able to connect with those people and know that you're not the only one who's gone through it or you're not the only one that feels this way.
Yes. For our first loss, I had started a new job and I was probably only there for maybe 2.5 months and they didn't know I was pregnant yet. So then, of course, the next morning, I told my husband, I'm like, I just want to go to work. I wanted to try. I thought that occupying my mind would help. And I worked at a research hospital. And so it was hard going in. And my direct supervisor was probably about 6, 7 months pregnant at the time. So I felt so guilty where I'm like, I can't talk to her about this because I don't want to upset her. But at the same time, I just cannot hold myself together right now.
That is so tough. Yeah, I wanted to go back to work as well because I just wanted to be distracted and just like not think about it. I went back too soon, but I
Mm.
also didn't have a bunch of PTO, so I didn't really have a choice in that. But I worked with all men, so they didn't really understand. Like they knew what had happened because I had complications with her in the pregnancy. And so like they knew I was pregnant and they knew all of that, but it was still really hard to go back and be around them.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's just having to go through like the worst experience in your life and then, pretty much a week later, a month later, however soon, you just go back and you're expected to just be the
Live.
person you were before and move on, like go to work, take care of your kids, that's it. Like conversation over.
Exactly. And I think that's another hard part too, when people are just like, oh, well, just try again. You know, you can get pregnant. It's like, well, it's not that cut and dry.
Like, well, thank you for that wonderful
Yeah,
piece of advice,
I
but
appreciate you.
I had not thought of that.
Right.
I know. When did you find like the Lost community on Instagram? Was it about the same time as Facebook or?
I was definitely more active in the Facebook groups, kind of. I didn't even post at first, just kind of reading other people and silently lurking. And then with Instagram, I would say same thing about maybe even 2.5 months ago, right when I started going public with this nonprofit.
I had no idea there were so many people on both Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, all of them really, that are talking about loss.
I love it, honestly. I mean, I hate that for them, but I love the transparency and that people are brave enough. I mean, even you with your podcast, listening to some of the other stories, listening to your story, it's it's hard and it's difficult, but I feel like you're strong enough to talk about it, to give other people strength when they just don't want to go on day by day.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had people on that it's their first time telling their story ever. And, I'm like, do you know how brave that is of you to, put yourself out there and be vulnerable like that? But how many people you help by doing that? And even if it just helps one person, like it was worth it.
It really is.
And it's hard. I mean, I still have hard days sharing my story. It's not like we go years and years and then it's like, okay, it's suddenly easy now, you know.
That grief never fully dissipates.
No, and yeah, there's no timeline on grief because
Right.
everybody who hasn't been through it seems to think there is. Like, okay, you're at a year, like let's move on from it.
I actually had to, after our first loss, my husband and I decided to go to Vegas, of all places, just blow off some steam, have some fun. And we went with a few friends, and one of my girlfriends, it's her personal choice. She never wants kids. That's not for her, and that's great for her. I love that for her. But she was so, like, it had just been 2, 3 months, and she's like, "Aren't you over it already?" And I remember her asking me that in person. I'm like, "You've been my best friend for almost a decade, and you can't see how much I'm hurting." It
Yeah.
it's not okay.
It's hard when the people that you expect to be there are not the ones that show up for you. But then also equally cool to see people that you did not expect who show up for you in like a huge way and you're like, "Wow,
Yeah.
it's not what I expected."
Oh, and sometimes those are where the best friendships come from also. And we had people that just showed up, people that my husband knew from his line of work previously, and they just showed up at our door with food the night before our DNC. So that way our boys had food. I had good nutritious food. We could just relax. They gave me bath bombs and stuff, just like a care package just to take some of that stress off of something you don't think about, like just cooking dinner for your family at the end of the day.
That's amazing. I wish everybody had somebody like that in their lives.
Yeah, you're so grateful for them.
Yeah, because people don't realize like the how hard it is, like you said, to just, I mean, even think about what am I going to make for dinner, much less like cooking it.
Exactly.
But yeah, you can't just not eat.
No,
Can't not feed your kids. You can't,
you'll
like you
have to
just have
show
to do
up.
it. So do you have any like advice or any encouraging things to say to somebody who's currently going through loss?
I think one of the biggest things is not be afraid to ask questions. And if somebody doesn't like, if their provider isn't providing them with resources, ask for them. Say, can I have counseling groups? What books can you recommend? Like, don't be afraid to ask questions just because it was made to seem like it can't be a long conversation.
I think that's really important. I always have to write my questions down so I don't forget them.
That's perfect because then they are fresh in your mind.
But it does feel like sometimes when you go that you're bothering them by asking those questions. So I think we have to learn. I think it is especially something as women that we deal with because we don't want to make other people uncomfortable, which is why we don't talk about our losses, which, all of that because we'll be uncomfortable, but we don't want to make other people uncomfortable.
Right. Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. I'm like, why do we do this to ourselves? We're like, it's okay if we suffer as long as everybody else is happy. It's like, no, don't do that.
Not the way it's supposed to be.
I know. Like, I'm trying to be better about that. So, but yeah, I find it surprising how many people, me as well, struggle with just a simple thing like advocating for yourself with a doctor because it's something we should all be able to do, but it's hard for so many of us.
It is hard. It really is. I almost, with our second miscarriage, I even considered going to a different doctor and I tried to get an HCG blood draw sooner because the first one wasn't listening to me when I was like, something feels wrong. I know my body and this is just not right. So I even tried to like sideswipe just to get someone to listen to me and take me seriously.
Did it work? Were you able to?
I was able to. Mhm. I was able
Yeah.
to.
Well, good. I mean, at least you were able to do something, like felt like you had control over something in the situation? So is there anything else that you'd like to share or add about anything?
No, honestly, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for doing the podcast and just letting so many people tell their story. Extremely therapeutic.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing all of the work that you continue to do with the nonprofit.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Natassa, for sharing your story with us. If you've ever left a doctor's appointment after miscarriage feeling more confused, dismissed, or alone, then this is for you. Let's talk about the simple 3-question test every provider should be able to pass after miscarriage in just a moment. First, I want to remind you to please subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you would like to help the show, please take a moment to leave a review or rating on Apple or Spotify. And if you want more information about the show, please check out the show notes at journeyforjasmine.com. So the first question in the 3-question test is, did anyone explain what just happened to your body in plain language? It sounds so simple, but it's something that so many providers are lacking. Many of us are often just told it'll just be a heavy period, and that's basically all we're told. We're not told about the other things that can happen, like the cramping or other physical symptoms. It's really important that all providers take the time to tell us what exactly to expect and the things to look for and the things that could happen. The second question, did anyone tell you what to expect emotionally, not just physically, after a loss? This is where I personally see one of the biggest gaps. To providers, early losses, miscarriages are early, and in their eyes, okay, we can just try again. We didn't really lose a quote baby. But to us, that was our baby. And we are upset and we are grieving, and we need to be able to have permission to do that. And we need to be told by our providers and by other people in our lives that this is normal and that it's okay to grieve the loss, that we're going to be affected by the hormones in our body because we are still going through postpartum. Whether you're early or not, we still have those hormone shifts, and it's not something that is ever really talked about, but it's really important to know that we're going to go through these physical changes and these emotional changes. And then question number 3, did anyone offer a follow-up appointment or resources without you having to ask for it? Most of the time, if we even get one, there's just one appointment, and we're basically checked physically, told you're ready to try again, or you have to wait this long to try again, and that's all. Sometimes they may give a list of resources. I remember at the hospital, after my loss, I was given a list of counselors. I contacted every counselor on that list, and no one would call me back. So making sure that the resources are up to date, that there's people that you can reach out to, groups that you can reach out to, nonprofits in your area, things like that. And then also the follow-up appointment to not only check on your physical health, but to also keep track of how you're doing mentally. And I don't mean just that simple postpartum depression paper that you're always having to fill out with the few questions that doesn't really tell you anything about how you're doing. Of course, we're sad all the time. We just lost our baby. That just makes me so mad. So, to sum it up, question 1, did anyone explain what happened to your body in plain language? Question 2, did anyone tell you what to expect emotionally, not just physically, after going through a loss? And question 3, did anyone offer a follow-up appointment or resources without you having to ask for them? If the answer is no to even one of these, it's not your fault. It's a gap in the system. And this is why so many are fighting for better advocacy, better language, and standardized care. It's why these are so important. And when we start to name these gaps clearly, we can start changing what's considered normal after loss. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.